He told her to leave the base. Then someone said her F-22 call sign. The Admiral's face went white. Every SEAL stopped talking. Want to know why Valkyrie makes warriors go quiet? Stay with me. Raya Mitchell stepped off the transport with grit on her tongue and a broken watch on her wrist. The glass face was spidered, hands stuck at 0219. It had been stuck since a night she never described. She never fixed it. Some clocks tell the truth better when they can't move. The Pacific air bit hard. Coronado wore its salt like rank. Boats cut a bright white line behind the barrier islands. SEALs jogged past in pairs, sweat turning their shirts to ink. She walked alone. Air Force blew in a sea of tridents. Eyes skimmed over her, then returned. Then narrowed. Inside the ops building, the hall smelled like black coffee and solvent. Maps on the walls. Pins in patterns no outsider should read. Raya read them anyway. She carried a duffel, a flight helmet, and an empty wallet that folded thinner than paper. She had emptied it 3 weeks ago in a waiting room, where a gold star hung from a mother's silence. She never asked for reimbursement. She didn't keep the receipt. A petty officer pointed her toward the Admiral with a tilt of the chin. No warmth, no hostility. Just routine. She knocked. Enter. Admiral Kincaid did not stand. White hair cut to the regulation's edge, wrists like steel rope. He did not offer a chair. "Captain Mitchell," he said. "This is a Navy base." "Yes, sir. We have our own pilots." "Yes, sir. And yet Joint Command sends me a Raptor jockey to tell my SEALs how to breathe." Raya didn't blink. Not how to breathe. How to come home. The room went quiet in a way that stings your ears. 2 staff officers looked down. A third drew a line on a pad that meant nothing and everything. Kincaid watched her for a full 5 seconds. He had spent a life drawing the line between pride and risk. Today the line sat across her boots. "Brief the room at 08, he said at last. "Then you're done." "I don't need your kind of help," she nodded. "Understood." At 07:59 the room was full. Operators, liaisons, weather, a medic with a notebook. Raya stood by the side wall. Short sentences on her tablet. Wind, ceiling, extract windows. Radar holes that open and close like a fist. She kept it simple. You can swim the perfect line and still die in a fog bank. The ocean doesn't care about ribbons. I'm here for visibility, comms, and cover. That's it. A young SEAL snorted. "What's the call sign on that cover, ma'am?" "Angel wings." A few chuckled. Raya didn't. "No wings. Just timing," the Admiral cut in. "We've survived a century of timing without Raptors arriving to tuck us in." She could have let it go. She didn't. "And you've written more names than you needed to." The chair scraped the floor when he stood. The room felt smaller. His voice stayed low. "You're out of line. Just honest," he pointed at the door. "Off my base by sundown." Her heart didn't move. The broken watch stayed still. She lifted the helmet. "Yes, sir." She turned and walked out. Every step counted, the hall long as a runway. Outside, gulls folded into the grey. The road beyond the last fence was dusty. Not the clean Navy kind, but desert dust hitching a ride on a coastal wind. Raya tasted it and remembered something she did not say out loud. A night valley. A long radio call. A countdown that refused to stop. Her phone vibrated once. Unknown number. She let it ring. She sat on a crate by Hangar C and set the helmet beside her boots. Its painted name had been scratched away by time and bureaucracy. Most people missed the outline. The ones who didn't never forgot. She thatched her fingers and watched the runway heat go wavy. She tried to picture home but got the empty wallet instead. It made a thin noise when you flicked it. Like a moth with a bad wing, Boots stopped beside her. "Captain Mitchell!" She looked up. The man wore the kind of face that's been sanded by 12 deployments. Chief Grant Salazar. He studied the helmet. His mouth opened, then shut. "What?" she asked. He swallowed. "Nothing." But it wasn't nothing. It was the word he did not dare say not yet. The word that turned men quiet. A siren thinned the air. 3 helicopters lifted and slid east. Raya watched them without moving. The broken watch on her wrist pointed to a time that could kill. Chief Salazar cleared his throat. "Can I ask you something, ma'am?" "Ask." What happens to a base when it throws away the only person who knows what's coming? Raya stood, palm on the helmet's crown. "You're about to find out," he stared. "What do you mean?" The hangar radio crackled. A tech sprinted out, face white, headset crooked. He looked at Raya, then at Chief. Then over his shoulder, like the sky itself was listening. "Captain," he said, breathless. "You need to hear this." Raya lifted the headset. A voice came through, thin as wire and twice as sharp. "This is Hammer 2, patrol compromised." "Repeat, compromised." "We need Sky, now." Raya didn't look at the Admiral's office. She looked at the dusty road beyond the fence and the watch that never moved, and she said very softly, "Tell me where." The tech hesitated. "But the Admiral, tell me." Raya said, "He did." The radio went quiet. The hangar doors began to roll open and the Admiral stepped onto the threshold, just as Chief Salazar finally whispered the outline painted under her. Knuckles, Valkyrie. Kincaid stopped dead, everything else kept moving. The hangar swallowed the daylight like it was hiding a fire. Crews shouted. Someone pulled a tow bar. Somebody else tripped on a cable and got up swearing and grateful to be running. Raya moved like water finds a crack. No wasted speed. No showing off. She had known this current for years. Captain Mitchell, a flight chief, called uncertain. "You're not cleared." Admiral said, "He did," she answered. Then radio said something else. She checked the Raptor's intake with 2 fingers and a habit. Cool, dry, ready to burn. Chief Salazar hovered near the ladder. He didn't climb. He didn't touch the jet. He only looked at the helmet. At the ghost of a word, the base had turned into a ghost story. His throat clicked. "Ma'am, Chief," she said, and that was permission enough. He snapped out of whatever memory had pulled him under. Inside the ops building, Admiral Kincaid didn't sit. He stared at the status board like it had insulted his flag. "Who authorized Hammer 2? He asked. "Joint exercise patrol, sir," the aide said. "Coastal range, routine." Kincaid's jaw flexed. "Routine is the word you say before the worst day of your life." He knew that. He'd written it on letters. He'd read it at funerals. He looked through the glass wall at the hangar and saw a Raptor being pulled into the open. "Stand down that taxi," he said. His voice didn't carry. Back on the floor, Raya ran one hand over the chalk mark under the canopy rail. The letters were faded, not erased. Valkyrie. The paint had been sanded by people who believed legends make young pilots reckless. It hadn't worked. Legends make old men careful. A young avionics tech stared up at her. "It's really you," Raya paused. No smile, no denial. "Run your bit checks." He ran them, hands shaking. The diagnostic panel bloomed green like a slow sunrise. "All good, ma'am," she nodded. She lowered the helmet over her head. It clicked against her skull like a door closing. The ladder shook. Someone else had come up. The Admiral. He stood one rung below her cockpit, wind pushing his cover back a fraction. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He looked at the name ghosted in paint. And he froze. He was a man who had walked toward gunfire when it was his turn, and signed after-action reports when it wasn't. He had ordered people into storms. He had counted the ones who didn't walk back. He had built a life out of straight lines and policy edges. The shape in front of him was not a line. It was a blade. "Is that your call sign?" he asked. She met his eyes through plexiglass. It was. He stared. "Operation." She said nothing. She didn't have to. The chief on the floor said it for her. "Rojaya. Night Valley. 2 birds down. 1 radio left. We were supposed to die there." A new voice came in on the hangar PA. The voice had sand in it. "This is Hammer 2. We have movement on the ridgeline. We need immediate overwatch." Kincaid's gaze flicked to the speaker, then back to her. "If you go wheels up, you do it under my order." "Understood," Raya said. "No grandstanding. No disobeying for drama." Raya's fingers tightened on the throttle that wasn't live yet. "No drama, sir. Just timing." He swallowed pride like glass. "Valkyrie," he said, as if testing whether the word would curse him. "You fly." At that, the hangar changed. The crews didn't cheer. They didn't whoop. They got faster. You don't celebrate an ambulance leaving the garage. You clear the road. Raya started the sequence. The engine spun up to a hiss, then to a growl, then to the roar that lives in people's bones long after the plane is gone. The canopy sealed. The world narrowed to HUD green and a horizon cut from steel. Her broken watch pressed cold against her wristbone, strap sweat slick. She couldn't see its face. She didn't need to. She knew what 219 felt like in her chest. Taxi lights winked. Ground crew peeled away. Chief Salazar stood at the edge of safety and didn't step back. He lifted 2 fingers. Not a salute. A promise. Raya pointed the jet toward the mouth of the runway. The ocean flashed like a blade at the end of it. Valkyrie, the tower said, voice steadier now. Cleared for immediate departure. Angels at your discretion. Copy, she shoved the throttle. The Raptor pulled the earth behind it like a sheet. Wheels kissed air. Gear folded. The base fell away. Roofs turning to scales, people to pins, the Admiral to a hard dot. She climbed through a thin cloud and leveled low. The coast hunched to her left. The ridgelines lay ahead like knuckles. The radio clicked and bled, the way it always does when fear sits on the wire. Hammer 2, say position, static. A breath. 2 clicks east of Point Grey, someone's hunting. We can hear the rocks move. Eyes up, Raya said. Smoke if you have it. No smoke, no cover. Nothing but... The voice stopped. A new sound slid into the frequency like a bad idea. Tone. Missile search. Raya's skin went cold. She rolled left so hard her ribs pressed the wrong direction. The sea tilted to a wall. The hills became teeth, then the tone changed. Not search lock, she whispered. Not today, but the sky doesn't bargain. A white finger rose from the ridge. The white finger lifted. Raya dropped flares. Heat bloomed behind her like a bad sunrise. She rolled knife edge and cut a seam through air that wanted her gone. Hammer 2, say Mark. North of Point Grey, the breathless voice said. 2 launchers. 1 close team. Copy. She traced the ridge. 4 shapes, 1 tube. She let the laser do the math. 1 blink, 2 release. The hillside coughed fire and lay still. Shift west 10, she said. Stay low, they moved. She cut east. Heat ghosts danced. She ignored them and listened for human rhythm. Found it, another crew. They thought the rock hid them. It didn't. She split the stone above their heads. They looked up. The second round arrived before their eyes came down. 2 tubes cold, she said. Close team? Too close, Hammer whispered. We hear the gravel. Do not answer them. She climbed, rolled inverted, and slid along the cloud's pale spine. The broken watch pressed her skin. 02:19, a small moon under a glove. She used its weight like a metronome. Tower weather window? 4 minutes. Enough if she made it so. She dropped through cloud, guns armed. The Raptor breathed out a brief stitched line. The near team scattered, 1 fell. The others froze, then ran toward the only cover left. The cover led straight to Hammer 2. Hammer, break right, she said. Dry creek. Move now. Static chewed the last word. Then a new tone arrived. Not from the hills, from the sea. A second lock climbed her spine. She leveled and saw it. A black boat crouched on a grey sheet. A man on the bow with a tube and a radio. The ocean wore a thin bruise where the wake cut it. She had no time to argue with physics. Boat with manpads, coastal bearing 185, she called. Hammer, keep moving. Creek bed. Do not silhouette, no answer. Static sat like a stone on the line. She slid low. Ground spoke in gusts. She dumped chaff and flares in a crooked ladder and kicked the jet sideways. The missile bit at heat and died confused in the spray. The bowman turned, shouted into his handset. Somewhere inland a spotter would be guiding rifles. She scanned the ridgeline. There, a guy on a motorcycle above the dusty road, helmet bright as a lie. He was the whisper. He was the eyes. Raya couldn't use a heavy punch. Too close to Hammer's line. She chose the quiet tool, guns, 1 short run. The bike folded. The road held its dust in its mouth. Her empty wallet flashed in her mind. The last bill slid across a counter, to a mother who did not blink. Debt like that never clears. It only collects names. She refused to let today add one. Tower, she said. X-fill. Hello scrambled. Weather's falling apart. 2 minutes if they dare. Have them stage south. Fuel scratched her ear with its small warning. She ignored it the way you ignore a tooth you'll fix later. Hammer 2, confirm creek. Silence, then a whisper. We're in the cut low, but we've got company. Copy. She rolled for another pass. The sea lock returned, closer, smarter. She had 1 choice left before the gauges turned mean. She took it. Request authority to engage maritime threat with restricted ordnance, she said. Calm voice. Hot hands, Admiral Kincaid answered. No hesitation now. Cleared. She armed a small bomb meant for sly moves. No theatrics. She curved wide, then slid a line the boat could not see until it was too late. The splash was a fist under the waterline. The bow lifted, then sagged, then gave up its radio to the waves. Maritime threat neutralized, she said. Hellos are waved off, tower cut in. Ceiling collapsed. We can't get them in, so the air had closed like a fist. Fine, she'd used the fist. Hammer, she said, angle for the south cove. When you hear the longest thunder you've ever heard, you move. No lights, hands on each other's backs. Understand a beat. Then, understood. She pulled the throttle back to almost nothing. Let the jet become a stone that fell well. She rode the spine of the ridge, then pushed through the heavy air over the beach. She punched the burners just once. The sky cracked. Windows on the coast hiccuped. People looked up at the wrong thing. In the cove, small shapes uncoiled and ran. Her broken watch thumped her wrist. 12:19, the time that had refused to pass. She decided it meant arrival, not loss. Fuel yelled now. No more scratches. Full voice. Bingo, she said to herself. One pass left. On thermal, a new smear appeared near the creek mouth. Not a team, a single patient dot. A rifle laid as if on a table. Sniper. Had the waiting shape of a man who had practiced the last. Breath all morning. Raya dropped a wing and aimed the long, thin line of her guns where his patience ended. The radar chimed again. Not the sea. 2. Fast movers lit the far edge of her scope. Unknown IFF. Hard, straight contrails. And the sniper's finger began to take up its slack. The radar sang its bad hymn. 2 fast movers at the edge of the scope. Unknown. Hard lines. Closing. The sniper's muzzle lay black at the creek mouth. Still as a promise. He had patience for 5 full lifetimes. He had one finger that had learned the last breath. Raya chose. She dropped a wing and dragged the guns across the sand 10 meters short. The burst tore the ground like a zipper. Dust leapt up thick and dumb. It shoved itself between the rifle and the world. The sniper's shot cracked anyway. It went high. The round found nobody. The dust held. She didn't give him a second breath. She stitched the rifle and the rock that held it. Stone spat. The human shape jerked once, then turned into nothing the wind could talk about. Hammer Creek is clean, she said. Cove now. All the way. A voice answered that sounded older than a minute ago. Moving. The unknowns crossed the line. Guard, Raya called. Aircraft bearing 280 Angels low, say call sign. Silence. Kincaid came on, steady but faster. We have range traffic unaccounted for. 2 drones broke link when somebody lit us up offshore. They're piggybacking on anything with a strong picture. So they'll come for me, they will. Good. She looked at her fuel. No digits left for guesses. I'll take them south. You can't outrun stupidity on fumes, Kincaid said. I can shape it. She rolled out over the beach lip. No south, sea on her right shoulder. Land on her left like a blade you don't dare touch. The weather pressed its damp hand down. The world got small and close. Her broken watch thudded her skin in tiny knocks. 19. The night that year refused to pass. She had carried it like a stone. She had waited for it to mean something else. Valkyrie, the tower said. Hellos are still a no-go. SWCC is punching through the shoals. 2 boats. 3 minutes, make it 2. Copy. She let the Raptor sink until the Pacific reached up and cooled its belly. She fed it a whisper of throttle. Not enough to drink more than a thimble. Enough to stay alive. The drones would smell the radar and the metal and the heat. They did. They came in low and eager. Sleek bodies, simple minds. The first took her flare like a child catches fireflies. It swallowed the lie and spiraled into spray. The second was smarter only by luck. It missed the flare and stayed hungry for her. Raya skimmed a line of kelp beds. The drone mirrored, obedient to math. She lifted one wing and let the other kiss the damp air that sits an inch above the sea. The drone tried the same love and learned it was not built for that kind of closeness. Its wing met a wave. It broke its own spine. Pieces skipped like stones, then sank with the quiet of things that have no story left. She breathed once. She did not smile. The creek mouth opened to the cove, a thin strand of beach. Rocks like watching men. The wind funneled salt and fog into a mean throat. Figures moved, low and linked. Hands on backs, faces to the ground. Hammer 2 on thermal, a new smear burned near the far rocks. A shoulder, no, a brace. One more tube. The last man with the last coin. Raya checked her tray. No lavish options. 1 shotgun burst left. 4 flares. Chaff like torn paper. Fuel at Bingo's mean cousin. She thought of her wallet. Thin as grief. Only 1 bill left and someone across a counter who needed it more. She had laid that bill down without counting. She would lay this down the same way. She rolled to line the gun. The wind shoved. The sight danced. She held her breath not to shrink fear but to still it. She let the jet's pulse find her pulse. She squeezed. The line walked across rock. The man jolted. The tube jerked skyward and coughed wrong. The missile jumped into the fog like a dog that lost the scent at the first step. "Cove clear," she said. "South point next move." Water foamed white at the cove mouth. 2 low boats cut the seam. SWCC gray, angles like a fist. They didn't speak on the net. They didn't need to. They bit the beach and opened mouths for men. Shapes poured in like water into a hole, a crack of rifles from the high scrub. The boats shrugged it the way oaks shrug a first rain. They edged free, backed, turned, caught the surf just right, the kind of timing you only learn by being wrong in public. Then they were out and running flat. Raya took the sky 500 feet to look hard for anything the sea had not forgiven. Nothing new. The weather crushed the horizon. The world was a bowl with high wet walls. "Valkyrie," Kincaid said. "You're out of fuel." "I know. Say plan. Plan is air until there isn't. Bring her home. Field is clear." She turned north. Heavy air clawed at the wings. The jet felt like a boulder someone had taught to glide. She trimmed for kindness. She took the throttle back to the kind of forward where you can hear your own blood. The broken watch lay against her like a small, cold animal. It had been dead for years. It had also kept her alive. It had told her in its unmoving way which minute mattered. She lifted her left hand off the stick for half a second. She touched the fractured glass with one knuckle. "Move," she said to it. The second unknown painted her again. She looked left. The cloud broke for one heartbeat. A silhouette slid along its ragged edge. Not drone, lighter, rougher. A small jet with a hungry nose and no lights. Whoever had sent men with tubes and boats had also paid for teeth with wings. "God," she said. "Unknown single left 9 o'clock. You do not want this." It didn't answer. It tucked in for a shot. She had no burners to make him miss. No speed to yank a curtain of air in his face. She had only angles and the ink left in the pen. She drew one more line. She leveled. She mathed the wind in her bones. She dumped a ragged ladder of flares not behind her, but off to the side where the fog ate them and kept the heat. She flicked chaff like confetti into a wedding the sea didn't approve of. She rolled a quarter turn and slid sideways, letting the jet pretend to be a gull in a bad mood. The unknown took the bait meant for someone smarter. His seeker took the false party. His shot went wild and arced toward the empty place where her shadow had been. He corrected. Late. She didn't go back to fight. She went home. "Tower," she said. "Expect flame out on final." "Runway lights set full," the controller said. "Trucks standing by." Kincaid added a thing she didn't expect. "For Valkyrie, if you have to ditch. Beach 2 is soft tonight." She could hear that he had taken his hat off. She could hear he had set it down carefully on a table that held maps and names and a pen he did not want to use. The base came up through the milk like a ship you remembered building in a dream. The bright line of the runway shone hard and thin. She felt the jet's weight go honest. The engine coughed a small boy's cough. Then it coughed again like an old man. Then it stopped having anything to say. She was a glider. A thrown knife that had to land flat. Raya flattened it. She kissed the last of the height away. She reached for gear and felt the drag grab. She held her breath because there is a moment right there where the universe listens. If you ask small, it might say yes. The wind shifted stupid. A crosshand slap. The nose slewed. She corrected with the tiny muscles you build in your wrists in rooms where nobody can see you fail. The center line moved under her like a snake trying not to be stepped on. Chief Salazar's voice came from nowhere and everywhere. Not on the radio. In her head. A memory laid over the present like gauze. "We were supposed to die there," he had said. But they had not. She would not. The wheels kissed. The first squeal was the sound of promises not broken yet. The second was the sound of rent coming due and someone finding a spare key. The nose came down. The runway rushed past like a river that had waited for her for years. She let the brakes nibble. She let them bite. She felt the anti-skid chatter its teeth. The jet wobbled, then agreed to behave. It slowed enough to believe in ahead. Through the fog thin as breath, shapes moved at the edge of the concrete. Men, trucks, a flag that had been shoved upright when something bad began. The Admiral stood out there with no cover on his hair. She let the jet roll long so the heat would not set the field on fire. She drifted to a stop near the far end where the lights turned soft. The canopy did not pop right away. She sat and listened to the engine tick itself cool. She listened for the last drone of a threat that had not quite learned to give up. Her chest began to hurt in the old place. She looked down at the watch. It ticked, just once. She didn't move. She wasn't sure she'd seen it. The hand that had been frozen at 02:19 trembled the width of a hair. Then it stilled again. The crack in the glass caught a piece of light and drew it like a line on her skin. Crew ran. A ladder rolled. Hands reached. She kept them waiting a breath. She took off the helmet. The paint ghosted the old letters. Valkyrie. She set it on her lap like something you can carry and not drop if you decide to. Kincaid walked up the rungs until his face was level with hers. Rain dotted his cheekbones. He was trying hard to choose the right first words. "Captain Mitchell," he said. She looked past him. Down the taxiway, 2 grey boats slid under the pier lights. Men with tridents climbed out, like the sea had always been theirs. Chief Salazar stepped onto the concrete and stood still, because sometimes the only way to honor a door you got through is to stop and feel the hinge. Raya breathed. The air smelled like wet rope and kerosene, and the iron taste that comes after fear decides. It can wait until later. She handed the Admiral her empty wallet. He blinked. "It's for the bill you didn't mean to send me," she said. "You told me to leave." "I spent anyway." He held the thin leather and understood it wasn't money. It was a receipt for authority and trust, and the kind of apology you make with orders next time, not words now. A siren began at the far side of the base. Not panic. Not celebration. A tone that meant something else. Heads turned, the tower called down to them all. Voices all at once, confused, urgent, multiple returns, someone said. "Southwest quadrant, low many." Kincaid's head snapped up. He shoved the wallet back at her like it weighed more than it did. He pointed toward the far fog where the runway lights vanished into blank. "More drones?" a crewman said. "No," another voice answered. "Not signatures like that." The ground trembled as if a train you couldn't see had decided the field was its track. The fog bulged. A rumble rolled across the tarmac. Not the tight shriek of jets. Not the chop of rotors. Heavy, rolling. Wrong, Raya. Set the helmet back on her head without looking away from the white wall. Her broken watch ticked again, then the fog split. Down the middle like a curtain someone impatient had grabbed. And a shape taller than the hangar roof came forward on wheels that did not look like anything the base owned. And the Admiral said, almost softly, "What in God's name is that?"